Thank you all for joining me here today on Cooking with AJ. Today we're going to make cake pops from scratch. First thing we're going to do is we're going to preheat our oven to 350 degrees. Now today we're just going to use a regular cake mix. We have our cooking spray. We have our eggs, which we will need for the cake mix. And I believe for this recipe, we will need some cooking oil. No, I was wrong. We need some water. Okay, now before you start, if you're going to mix your cake by hand, make sure you always wipe it out. You want it to be clean. They are clean, but you just want to make sure. We'll put aside 2 of our cake pops, and we'll use them for later. I'll show you later. Now let's get started with our cake mix. Today I'm going to use perfectly moist Duncan Hines butter golden cake mix. Usually I do make my cakes from scratch, but today, because we're involving us doing cake pops and decorating them, not just making them, we're going to use the cake mix. Make sure you shake the bag. Make sure all those cake mix comes out of the top of the bag. Cut it open. Pour it right in the bowl. Now, to that, we're going to add the eggs and the water and the butter. We're going to add 3 eggs and 3/4 of a cup of water and 7 tablespoons of butter or margarine softened. This is very important. If you're going to mix your cake mix by hand, must make sure the ingredients are room temperature or a little warmer. Take them out at least 2 to 3 hours in advance. Take your eggs out and your butter out. And you can slice your butter into little sections and let it warm inside your microwave in the bowl. Don't melt it in the microwave. Don't just let it sit in there in a bowl with the eggs. So they're all room temperature. Now, before we get started, to make it a little bit easier, I'm just going to crack 3 eggs. Very good. Okay. Now, we also need 3/4 of a cup of water. I'm sorry, my eyes are not that good. Okay. Then we'll get our butter. Remember now, I didn't turn the microwave on. All I did was slice up our 7 tablespoons of butter, so it will soften easier. Do not melt this. Now, to our cake mix, first we're going to add the butter. or water. And we're going to start mixing. Then we're going to add our eggs in one by one. Before you add the eggs in, make sure everything in your cake mix is broken up. You do this for about 5 minutes. While you whisk, you also turn your bowl around. Now we're going to take a wooden spoon and just finish it up. We want to make sure everything is nice and smooth, and it is. Okay, set that aside. now, now, let me get your cake pop molds. These are your cake pop molds, okay? This the one that the edge, the side with the hole in the top. That's the top. The side without the holes is the bottom. Now over our sink, we're going to shake our can of spray. I'm just going to lightly spray them. Okay. Then we're going to place down here, and then we'll do the same for our top. We're going to place our lid right here. Okay. Now, silicone mold, you're not supposed to have to grease. I just greased mine just in case. I'd rather be cautious. These are going to come out beautiful, and I would rather have them just a little bit too much grease than no grease at all, and I'm having them stick. Now, if you get out a spoon, you have your pan. We're going to take some of our cake mix. See how, oh, I hope you can see this. There's no lumps in our cake mix. It gets done just as good using a mixer as it does by hand. Now, since this is the first time I'm making cake pops at all, and I'm going to put a pan underneath my mold because we're going to see what happens. I've never made these before. This is the first time for everything. Now, you're going to pour a little bit and use a spoon just to stop it. You only want it a tiny bit below the top of the mold, just a tiny bit below. Let's see if we can get one more row out of this. You know, that was enough. Do the one side, so you move your tray to the side. You want to gently tap the mold. See, now I'm going to show you right now. This is why you don't want too much. Right now it's overflowing, so we're going to just take a paper towel and we're just going to wipe the excess off. If there's ever any extra cake batter, if they're not a perfect ball when you finish, you can always trim them. There's nothing wrong with that. So let's go back on the mold. Let's do this again. We'll put some more cake mix in the bowl. I think that's okay. Okay. Like I said, if there's any extra mixture as you go along, you just whip them all very carefully. If there's a little bit too much in your cake pop, take it out now before you bake it. Sometimes all you need is a very tiny bit out. Do our last row, and then this goes in the oven at 350 for 15 minutes. And that was easy, wasn't it? Just make sure you wipe up any excess batter that's connecting your cake balls, so that it'll save what you have to trim. Sorry. Okay, now let's finish. We're going to pour a little bit more in here. And because this is a butter-rich cake mix, you don't really have to top it that much. Now, if this was a denser cake mix, you have to tap it a lot more. Now we're going to use the towel one more time. You want to make, there's little grooves around the cake pop mold. That's where the lid fits into. You want to make sure you have no cake mix in there. You want it to seal properly. And if you see any other little, swipe it up. Now let's put the lid on this and get this straight in the oven. This is the one that has the side that has the holes. See if you can see. Can you see the little holes on top? That's for a toothpick. Tell if it's done or not. You have to make sure there's tiled. It just snapped right on with ease. And just go all around the edges. See? Every once you might find something you want to make sure the top molds creases are over the bottom molds. You'll know when you make these at home. Now, since I always increase my oven to 400, just while I'm preheating it. Slide you straight towards the middle. I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes. And then we're going to see if it's done yet. Okay? Okay, here we go. We had some very technical difficulties. I'm sorry about that. Now, while that's cooking in the oven, I'm just going to pour this batter back in here, and I'll redo it later. I'm just going to cover it, and we're going to use this for later. Maybe make some delicious cupcakes with it. Remember though, you never store anything for more than a few hours in the metal bowl. I'm going to use this up within a couple hours, so I'm using the metal bowl. And I love using these stretch glad bags. They're so handy, and they're so much better than if you don't have a lid for these. Then you just pop it right in the refrigerator. Now I'm going to go over the cake pop recipe. Again, all you use is regular cake mix, and make sure you grease your cake pop molds with this. You're not supposed to have to for silicone molds, but I always do. All right. I'm just in case no one has ever showed you this. I'm going to now. I don't know if this was posted for anybody. If you ever wanted to watch the cooking class while it's going on, the meeting ID is 758-4608-0011. And if for some reason it asks you for a passcode, put in 304126. But I don't think you should need a passcode. The meeting ID, which is 758-4608-0011, should be all that you need, just like a regular everyday Zoom meetings. Now we're going to go back to the video, and I'm going to stop sharing this page. Thank you. Now you see, now you can make it from scratch. You make a cake mix from scratch, but it's a lot more trouble because we're going to be decorating these items. So in the meantime, while that's baking, I'm going to show you a little video on actually how to make cake balls. Just bear with me a second. Now I'm going to show you another video on how to decorate them. But our cake pop mold is just about done. We're going to check on them. Take out some toothpicks. And get out your pot holders. Even though it only baked for 10 minutes, it's still going to be hot. Now very carefully. Another few minutes. While they're finishing, I'm going to show you another short video on how to decorate the cake pops. And then we're going to let them cool for 10 minutes. I'll go over the recipe and the directions for candy making with you while they're cooling down. Okay, so our cake pops should be done now. Just give it a few more seconds. You can also use these by baking a cake, and then afterwards you just crumble up the cake and you add some cream cheese to it or some icing to it and just make little balls that way. But this way is a lot easier and a lot less messing up, because believe me, once you start decorating with the candy, it is fun, but it does get a little bit messy unless you work very, very neat. And then that takes the fun out of it. So let's check on our cake pops now. Okay, they are done. Now we're going to take out our cake pops. We're going to let them sit in the mold for a few minutes. Then we're going to take them out. We're going to set them on a plate and put them in the freezer for 10 minutes while we're making sure we have all our tools we need for dipping them and decorating our cake pops. So I have a towel here. We're going to place our cake pop molds on the towel here. Now see, this is what I'm talking about. On the top of the K-pop mold are small holes where you can insert a toothpick. And if you just see a tiny bit of musky mix, that's perfectly all right. There's no need to panic. You just let them sit in the mold. That's why you let them sit in the mold. They'll continue cooking just like anything else you bake or cook. Even though you turn the heat off and remove them from it, it still cooks and bakes. Now, as I said, we are going to take our cake pop molds, transfer them to the towel. See, we were lucky we had no spillage. But just in case, every single time I bake, I usually put a pan underneath. Now, delicately, you grab this, you'll see it's a circular tab on one of the corners. Let me see if I can tilt this down. You'll see it on the K-pop mold. You gently pull that up, dislodge them very easily. Now, let me show you. I don't know if you can see it. See how they're all stuck together? That's one of the reasons you don't overfill your mold. So, we have extra heat mix. You live and learn. We have extra time. We're going to mix more K-pop. The oven is already heated, and we're ready to go. We're going to take our cake mix. Don't worry about this. Now, before this happens to everyone, no one's perfect. Now, again, gently, we're going to spray our K-pop molds. The top ones with the hole in it, with the holes in them, and this is the tab I was talking about. I can show it to you better now. See, there's always a reason for something to happen. Okay. We're just going to wipe out Very well. And we still have our spoon. We're just going to pour some mix. Perfect. Now, the bottom of our cake molds. Remember, like we did before? Just below the top. And that's half the mix, half the mold. Now, before you go any further, like I said, if you see there's any extra, wipe it cleanly away. I guess I didn't get all the extra cake mix. This is going to save on cake pops that you need to trim later on. Okay. Now we're going to add some more cake mix in here, and we'll finish the rest of the mold. Then we can start baking. Now before we bake these, you can take a little knife if you like, the dull side down, or you can take a spoon and just make sure all of the mix. That's another reason why you don't want any of your cake pops to be filled right up to the brim. If anyone looks like it is, just take the spoon, take a little bit out, and put it right back in your mixer. No, well, these are okay. No, they're all okay. Okay. 1 second. Now we'll take this. See, and that's another reason why you fill it right below the brim. Because when you do that, when you tap it, if they're filled right to the brim, or just above the brim, they're going to spill out. Now you can make sure it's locked and tight, like I showed you before. It goes in the grooves that outside of the top should be on the outside. You'll be able to feel it. Let's do it. Now we're going to put them back in the oven. We're going to set it for 12 minutes at first. 10 minutes, I'm sorry. Okay. Now we have the rest of our cake mix. But since we're not going to make anything right now, now while that finishes baking, I'm going to we're going to unearth the other cake pops. Now we're going to have to trim those before we get them into the freezer. I'll show you. Now first, we're going to put our mix back in the refrigerator. Then we're going to take our cake pops out one at a time, and then we're going to trim them. Let's see, that one broke a little, that one stuck a little bit. See how much trimming there is to do? Now some of these stuck to the mold. So actually I'm glad this happened. Now I can show you what not to do. This is the first time I use these molds. That is why they call for exactly 15 minutes. Not 13, not 12. Otherwise they fully stick. Now you have to make sure you get them fully out. Look at this. The extra 3 or 4 minutes. This is what I think they needed. Okay. Okay. Now, let me see. The ones that are not savable, actually, they're all too soft. Pretty much can't use any of this. It's okay. You live and learn. We live and learn. This is what happens if you put too much cake mold, too much batter inside the cake mold. You get all this excess. And this is also how soft this is when they're not baked for their full 15 minutes. But everything is a process. 5 minutes to go, and then we'll pull our pops out. Now, what do I always say? A good baker always tries to clean up as he goes along. Don't wait till the end. You clean up as you go. So this is all ready for when the cake pops come out of the oven for 15 minutes this time. Now I showed you one video on cake pops, and it showed you what happens when you overheat the melting chocolate. But before that, let's go over a few basic steps. Now, while that's still cooking, we have our chocolate candy melts that we're going to use today. But don't worry, we're not going to use all of this whole bag. We also have our white chocolates. And we also have our green chocolates for St. Patty's Day. Now, this is a small bag, only 12 ounces. So we're going to melt this entire bag today. Maybe even just half of this bag. You will need some disposable decorating bags. I have a few. Now, when I melt my candy melts, I put in a tiny bit of oil in that. When you melt a bag this size, you put in 2 teaspoons of oil. When you're going to half a bag, we'll put in 1 teaspoon of oil. It'll just help everything melt smoother. And I put the oil in at the very beginning. So as the green chocolate is melting, everything becomes the same temperature. You're also going to need the cake pop sticks. These are 6-inch sticks. And I also have the cake pop holder. You'll place the sticks in. Now, 1 second. Now we're only going to melt a little bit of the green candy melt because we're really going to use those for decorating, not so much for dipping. We're going to use the white and chocolate. We'll dip a few of the green also. Now, when we're ready, I'm going to melt all the candy melt, the white candy melt, or some of the white. Actually, no. We're going to use the smaller bowls. I'll show you in a second. And the smaller bowls, even yet, for the green, just to decorate them with. Okay, now. I'll put on a little video about decorating, but we don't have much time left before our cake pops come out. So this was very easy to make. All you do is to make sure you spray the molds thoroughly. You can use a regular cake batter. You can make it from scratch. From scratch will take you a little longer. I would just make them a cake mix. If you want, you can even make them a day ahead. You make them when they're done in the oven. You can take them right out of the mold if you want, and place them on a plate. Put them right in the freezer. 10 minutes later, you can trim them all up, place them back in the freezer or refrigerator then. Finish cooling off, and you can start melting your chocolates or your colors. You want to get the colors for dipping first. Actually, we do have a few minutes left, so I'm going to play this another small video for you on the decorating of our cake pops. I'm sorry to interrupt your video, but the K-pops are done, so we're gonna. Your video's still playing. Okay. Right, we're gonna let this sit for a second. We're gonna take these out. As long as you learn something from baking, this is never a mistake. Just remember that. This goes with anything. As long as you learn something, it's never a mistake. Ooh, let's go. Now, if you want to, these right here. Here's the trim what's a little worn. Okay. Now, we're going to take our cake pops out of the mold, put them on the plate, and put them in the freezer for 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Okay. Now they should be somewhat flat. They don't, if it's not exactly flat, it's okay. Gently. Remember this, even though it only baked for 15 minutes, it's still a hot product. It just came out of the oven. So you have to be careful. Now remember, these are easier to do the day before. So they have time to cool down. You have time to take them out and trim whatever you need to and put them back. You can put them in a container even in the refrigerator. So they're all ready to decorate the next day. So far, I'm not going to say anything. Now, you don't want to do any trimming now. You want to put these into the freezer for a good 10 minutes, if not 20. And most of these don't need to be trimmed, but there are a few that could use it, but you want to wait until they cool down fully. You don't want to try to trim anything when it's warm. Light trimming is good. Now we're going to pop these in. Okay. Like I said, we're going to pop these in for 15 minutes. Then we're going to trim them. Now, what you can do while you're waiting for them, you can just none of these overflow. You can just take a clean towel, and wipe all your molds spotless. Cause well, actually, this is what I would like you to do. Okay, put your cake pop mold back together. Right. Not that one. That one's too messy. Now, let's discuss our melting candies first. Now, to get your melting candy ready, this is a display case for your candy pops. We're not going to go over our candy melt just yet. I'm going to use these are for oil, and these are just stoppers for your plastic bags if you need them. I'll explain that later. Now, I ordered a cake pop making kit. With it comes the small bags to go over the cake pops once the chocolate has set. Right now, these are 6-inch sticks. We are going to use the 3-inch sticks or 4-inch sticks. I place them in the mold. Now, there should be 21 here. So we're going to we're gonna take out all our cake pop sticks. There's a hole in the top, and there's a lower shelf to give it more stability. Make sure the cake pop fits through both, the stick fits through both holes. Believe me, it's better to do this now, go through this now, than when the cake is dripping, or the icing will be dripping. And I'm going to show you how to decorate your cake pops without icing getting all, or the chocolates getting all over. I'll show you that in a moment. See, because just like this, some of these sticks are just a little bit too wide. So take it out, use the other side. Now, if you ran into the problem or you're decorating with the chocolates, okay, we're almost finished. Now, 10 more minutes for our cake pops in the freezer, and then we're good to go. Because some of these sticks are just a little bit wider, it's better to trim them now or to squeeze them in the hole, wiggle them in a hole now than when the candy melts are on there. Now, there was a reason I wiped out your cake pop mold, because before you decorate them or dip them, you have to dip the stick in a little bit of melted chocolate and then stick into the flat side of the cake pop. So when the cake pops, while they're chilling in the freezer, I'm going to explain to you about all the candy melts. Okay. Now we're done with these, so we'll put that aside. Now, like I told you before, we have our chocolate candy melt. We have our vanilla candy melt. And we have our green candy melt. We have our green candy melt, the same height as that. Now, I told you we used the 3-inch sticks when I bought the cake pop decorating kit from Amazon. Now, these are also stoppers, so just in case you use a decorating bag and you don't want any of your icing to spill over, you can pop these right over the tip. No icing will come out. You can also fold the bag upwards. And like I said, you need some decorating bags and a small spatula. That's not for right now. Now also, when you're melting the chocolates, let me see if I can show you. Now we have our K-pop mold. So when you dip this in chocolate, and then you dip it in the flat side, I'll show you. You can you can put the sticks in here. See, they should all be able to fit. You want to make sure they'll fit in there, and you also want to make sure they'll fit in here. Those little holes that the toothpick was for, you can also use those for the sticks once you dip it in the flavored chocolate. See, and they go right in. And these are rubber. So if they need to expand a little bit, they'll expand. So simple. Now our cake pops. Another 5 minutes. See? This is why it's always good to do these first, because if you run into any little problems where the stick can go in or you have to play with it a little bit, it's better to do it now than when you're ready to decorate everything. Perfect. And then that can go right up here for when you're all ready. Okay. Now, before I show you about any of the candy melts, I'm going to put this away for right now. I'm going to take out the cake pops and I'm going to trim them and then put them back in the freezer or the refrigerator. I'm sorry. Okay. Now we have a little, well, we just get a paper towel just in case you need to wipe your knife off. Actually, get out two. One to cut onto and one to wipe your knife off. And we'll start it in a minute. Let me show you, just give me a second. This is for when I show you about melting the cake pops, the candy for the cake pops, I'm gonna change everything around. Okay, now we're done with our timer right now. Now see, now this is what I'm talking about. You'll be able to see this when you do it yourself. This is the flat side. This is the side the cake pop will go into. Now it's up to you to determine if you need to trim them at all. You want to make sure all the one, two, check them all, which needs to be cut. And usually, if you fill them right below the brim of the mold, like I said, and you tap them gently, there won't be any spillover or any mess, and you won't trim anything. Make sure you bake them for 15 minutes. You so happened to mine the first time. Just make sure they're all bottom side up. They don't all have to be perfect either. See, these two, I don't know if you can see, are not perfectly round, but I'm going to use them anyway. We want to have 21 pieces. This is 21 sticks. So remember where you started? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right, so we're going to have 20. Now, we're going to start the fun part. We're going to start decorating. Now, before we start decorating, we want to show you from this side so you can actually see what I'm doing. Everybody can see the microwave? Perfect. Perfect. I'm glad everybody can see the microwave. And these are our cake pops. Now we're going to start melting chocolate. So while we're melting this chocolate, it'll give them time to come to room temperature. And if they're still a little cold, it's all right. Now, this is for later, so we're going to put this over here with one extra cake stick. Okay. So we're going to start with our chocolate and white first. We're just going to do a little bit of each. We're not going to do a lot because we're only doing these 20, 21. Now I have 2 glass bowls that are microwave safe with the lid off. These are going to be for white or chocolate. These smaller bowls are going to be for the green for St. Patty's. Decorate them. But we're not using this right now. And these tubes, what you could use for the cake mix pops, since we didn't use them today. That's just started. Like I showed you before, we have our chocolate candy melts, our white candy melts, we have our green candy melts. Now, we're only going to take out what we're going to use within the next 15 to 20 minutes. So, to get started, take out 3 knives for the cake pops. Give us honey. We'll start with our white cake pops. Or white chocolate, I'm sorry. White chocolate. Now this is now for doing the cake pops. It's good to have paper towel, wet paper towel, some moist wipes, and some gloves around. Don't worry, it'll save you from wiping your hands, getting sticky chocolate all over. You can easily change these. Take off any jewelry. To start, we'll do we're going to do the same for our chocolate. And since these are all resealable bags, they all have a tab that you just tear off. same thing, half the bag. Make sure it's pulled tightly. The button green. We're going to do the whole bag. Make sure those are up. Make sure any bowl you're going to use, just a quick wipe out before you finish. Okay, and then you need one knife to start each color. Now, we get our oil. You're going to pour a teaspoon in each bowl, and you're going to microwave it on Okay, now we're going to start with the white candy melts first. Now it's actually easier to pour your oil into here. You want 1 teaspoon of oil. This is 1 teaspoon. You can always add more oil later on. You can't take away. And since they're not melted yet, one teaspoon. Never do any more than 2 small bowls at one time. Never. Now the chocolates are not starting to melt yet. Once they get a little bit warm, they'll start to melt. First, do for 30 seconds. You stir them both, and then you do it from there on at 15-second intervals. Now, if you want to, you can also chop the chocolates up to melt them easier, but you don't need to. Just feeling you don't need to. This is just a time-taking process. Never rush it. Stir them well, because as you're stirring them, you remember you're distributing the heat. If you cook it too much, you're going to burn the chocolates. You're going to burn your candy melts. And you don't want that. See, now the bowl is just starting to get warm, and the candy melts are melting on their own, of their own volition, their own heat. This is why you have to make sure you stir them thoroughly. As I'm stirring them, they're melting on their own. Then you do the same with the chocolate. Well, as you can see, candy melts are almost melted. One, maybe two. I think one more time to do it. This is why you make sure they're stirred thoroughly in between each blast of time in the microwave. As you can see now, the candy melts are fully melted. It's on their own. Now the white. It's the same way. Now, when I melt the green, I'm going to show you what it looks like without adding oil to it. That's what I was trying to avoid. Okay, we're done with the oil for now. We're done with the green for right now. Now, you don't air pockets. You want to, you can give it one last stir, just one. Same with the vanilla. No, I don't think we need a lot more for this, okay. Now we're going to dip a little bit of we're going to do the chocolate. Then we'll take a cake pop. This is one of the reasons I want to show you this. Right? Now, the cake pop with the sticks, leave right here. These cake pops. Place them back in the mold. And then after we do all this, we're going to let them dry. So then you take the next stick. Dip that in the chocolate. Next stick. Remember, you take the flat end. Always do the flat end. Take the process slowly. Don't try and rush it. About half to 3/4 of the way through. And when you get done with one, you can even hold it until it stands somewhat upright. That means the chocolate is starting to set. The first ones are already set. Remember, you don't want the rounded side. You want the flat side. Now after we do this, we'll place this back on the tray, on the plate, and we'll put it in the refrigerator or freezer for 5 minutes. Then we're just gonna warm the candy melts up a little bit. Now the ones that we did with chocolate, we will dip them in chocolate. The ones at the bottoms are in white, we're gonna do in white. And don't worry, we're gonna do some in the green too. Now you just turn the mold around so it's facing you. And you do your other color. And since we're going to be using white, now since we wore the since we wore the gloves, we didn't spill any. But now watch, if we had not worn gloves, watch how messy this would have been. We're just going to, while these are cooling in the refrigerator, we're going to just heat up our chocolate just a tiny bit, maybe 30 seconds each one. Now, we'll place this in the refrigerator about 5 minutes. Make sure our melting chocolate is the way we want it to be. Okay. Okay, now. Okay, they're set. We're gonna finish them in a second. This is why it's always better to get a piece of styrofoam from the dollar store and just take your 6 minute before and stick them in, because you can put them back in the cake mold when you decorate them. You can put them back in here, but styrofoam is a lot more sturdy than these molds. Now make sure when you melt the chocolates, if it's 12 ounces of chocolate, you put in 2 teaspoons of oil at the very beginning and you mix them up. If you're only doing a handful of chocolates, or like 2 or 3 handfuls of chocolate, only add a teaspoon of oil and mix it up. You do it on 30 seconds, power level 5 for the first 30 seconds. After that, it's power level 5 for 15-second intervals, stirring very thoroughly for at least 30 seconds in between each blast of microwave power. Now, when we dip these into the chocolates, the white chocolate and the milk chocolate, we're going to put them back in the hoods of the mold. Hopefully, God praying, they're not going to fall over. We could put them in a display case, and that might actually hold them better. You just have to make sure that you get all the chocolate off of it. I'm going to show you right now what I'm talking about. Actually, no. This is actually better this way. Now the ones that you have chocolate on the bottom that you dip in chocolate sticks, you do with the chocolate. The ones you did vanilla, you can do in the white chocolate or the green. But we're going to save a little bit of green for decorating. We might save a few of the white and a few of the chocolate for that. Okay, now. Great. That didn't work out right. Then you get out a small spoon. The chocolate. Hmm. Make sure you hold the cake pop over the melted chocolate until all the chocolate drips off. You turn it around slowly. And breasts have to have moist wipes nearby. This is why. If you get any chocolate on your hands, it comes right off. going to take you a while. Now the white. Our chocolate is starting to cool off. No, it doesn't. Now we're going to add a little bit more chocolate to this, not the vanillas, just the chocolate. Perfect. Now we're going to add a half a tablespoon of oil. So we'll just take a tablespoon or a teaspoon And we'll add half to each. Now, if you have enough chocolates melted in a bowl, You shouldn't have to be doing this with a spoon. But I haven't melted chocolate in a long time. It's best to get one of the plastic cups or glass, a regular glass that was microwave safe to melt the chocolate in. That would be good enough. And that will keep the temperature a little bit longer. That will be actually perfect. Mm. Look at this. These are coming out so perfect. This is how you actually want to do your cake pops. It's just being patient enough, holding this over the bowl of melted chocolate until every spare bit drops off. You can even let gravity help it a little bit. Hold it a little more. Once it's starting to set up, slide it right in here. So, for 99 cents, you can use them to help you decorate and discard them by new ones.